Hello and welcome to another Game Nexus arcade video. Today we're going to be taking a look at, if you can read this on your screen here, Virtua Fighter Remix. This was released on the Sega Titan video arcade hardware. Just going to give you a quick look at what we're doing here. We have, as you can see here, the Sega Titan video board. Show you really quick here. You'll see there is the Virtua Fighter Remix cartridge. This Sega Titan video board, as I might have mentioned in one of my new pickups videos, has this extra I/O board, which apparently does some extra stuff for certain games. I know for a fact it does nothing for Virtua Fighter Remix, as the game runs well with or without it. One small detail I want to show you here is over here I have this this connector here, which I've stripped, and then I have connected to the alligator clips that connect to that like de-amplifying circuit that I have, because what comes out of here is the stereo audio, which of course the JAMA harness would not provide. So it has the 2 pins for the right speaker, 2 pins for the left speaker, so you can get your true stereo audio from your Sega Titan video board, which is really nice. I just use that same, as I said, audio de-amplifier thing that I use for all my arcade games. Nothing much all that fancy to look at in the test mode here. Just like more or less your standard stuff. I could go through a couple things here real quick. Grab my controller here. Oh. Well, you actually have to operate it with the buttons here, so if you go into each game test mode, the rest of the stuff is pretty standard. You can actually check like what this game has, and you'll see it displays the logo of the game. And then you can just go through all the different things here. Your input test is going to just test all your directions, and then switch 1 is guard, switch 2 is punch, and switch 3 is kick. Sound test will let you see all your sounds, all your music, all your voice. Game assignments is just your standard stuff like how many matches per point, time limit, difficulty, what language it sets in. Of course, since this board runs the USA BIOS, it's English by default, but of course you could change it if you wanted to. I'll show you here what our options are. You have English, Spanish, and Japan. Because apparently Japan is a language. It's not Japanese, it's Japan. It'd be like instead of putting Spanish, they just put Spain or Mexico. Output test would probably be like initial D when it was showing us like buttons lighting up, but since I'm just having a board here and I don't have anything special, I'm just going to leave that as is. And we'll just get out of this and it'll go back to our regular test mode. Apparently there was, or at least was in development, a board that could take up to 4 cartridges. That's why it has all the different cartridge slots here. But apparently, from what I read on most arcade forums, nobody has ever seen one. So we're going to get out of the test mode and get right into this. And of course, you'll see the what cartridge you're using. And then of course, here comes the Winners Don't Do Drugs logo. And the Sega logo looking kind of 3D-ish. AM2, of course, is the development team that brought us this game. And then it'll get right into our game. I've uploaded the intros as a separate video, which was actually done a little while ago. As you can see, it shows all of the characters, and they're like nice little anime portraits here. And now this game actually was kind of like a knee-jerk reaction to the bad response to the Sega Saturn version of Virtua Fighter, because I probably touched on it briefly on my Virtua Fighter arcade video, but the Sega Saturn version of Virtua Fighter was so badly received, and nobody really liked it, because it just looked really bad, the graphics flickered, nothing really worked all that well. So they basically took fully texture mapped models here and just more or less quote-unquote remixed Virtua Fighter. So this arcade version on the Sega Titan video board was released in April of 1995. Then, July of that same year, you got your Japanese version, and then the European version came out in October. I'd imagine the American version probably came out around the same time as the European version, but I really don't have any information on that. The only other version of this game that came out was Virtua Fighter PC, which basically was a port of this game and the option to have like the quote-unquote original geography, even though it kind of was based off of the Sega Saturn version, but in my opinion it did look a little bit better. We may look at that in another video that I show here. And the cool part about this gameplay is I was actually able to get through all of the characters, the first few characters, without losing any 2 consecutive matches in a row. And what's kind of cool is this has the ranking mode of Virtua Fighter 2. You hold down punch, kick, and block, and push start, and you can get into that ranking mode. And as I had said, the models look better, are higher polygon compared to the Sega Saturn version. But if you were to compare these models to the actual arcade version of the Sega Model 1 arcade hardware, the polygon count on the models isn't as high, because if you remembered in that video I had mentioned that the game was able to render 180,000 polygons per second, whereas this game doesn't even come close to that because it's just more or less your Sega Titan video board, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically a standard Sega Saturn spec, but instead of running off of CDs, it runs off of cartridges. The only drawback with this game, at least that I've seen, is that you don't get CD quality audio, and of course, the audio tracks are a bit shorter because they have to fit them on the ROM cartridge, so as opposed to, like, I recorded a good, like, I believe 3 or 5 minute loop of Sarah's music from the arcade version of Virtua Fighter. The loop that they use for these songs is probably about maybe 30 to 45 seconds, and it just really repeats. So, on occasion, you'll probably hear it in this video a couple times. You'll hear like a moment of silence while the game is actually repeating the music track again. In fact, if you heard right there, it was actually stopping the music at the point and starting it all over again. And now, these next few matches, Wolf, Lau, and Akira, I lost a few times, so you kind of see a bit of an abrupt edit come in. But up to and including Pi, I didn't lose once. But one thing I definitely have to say about Virtua Fighter, especially Virtua Fighter 1 and 2, is if you haven't played it for a while, you kind of have to like get back into what I would consider the Virtua Fighter groove, where you just kind of like think what move comes next, what am I going to do next, whereas like Virtua Fighter 3 and up are a lot smoother of a game, where you don't really have to like overthink what's going to happen in this game. You just quickly press button here, press button there, you can string combos a lot easier. But that's one thing I would even go as far as to say would include in like Tekken 1 and 2. They kind of have that like groove you gotta have to fall into in order to actually do well in the games, because you'll notice not that much time jumps up. It's not like my Virtua Fighter 2 video or even my Fighting Vipers video where the time just jumps an awful lot, but it's a little bit. Because I think going up to like Sarah, Pi, I was at like 1 or 2 minutes or so, and then I gained a couple minutes, but it wasn't that bad. But one thing I have to say about this version of Virtua Fighter, it's a good looking version of Virtua Fighter. Like, it has like the Sega Saturn Virtua Fighter 2 type graphics, which
on their own are really nice if you don't like the really blocky look of the original Virtua Fighter. Myself personally, I find that the original Virtua Fighter characters are a bit artistic, and I think they look great. And if you compare the two versions for playability, they're both very playable. I just happen to favor the original arcade version, which is why I bought that ginormous arcade unit that you had seen in that video and my new pickups video at the time. But yeah, if you're a real fan of Virtua Fighter, you're probably going to want to pick up this one on the Sega Saturn, because of course, unless you already have a Sega Titan video board, or you know somebody who sells the cartridges cheap, it probably isn't worth for most people to actually pick this game up, unless you're a real arcade fan, or as I said, you already have a Sega Titan video either arcade board or one of the cabinets that's made from the same maker who made plastic garbage bins, which apparently a lot of the arcade people didn't really like the STV cabinets, and one of the websites that said it's like they were made by manufacturers of garbage cans, and they were treated just as such, because the American cabinets at least were just very ugly from what I understand. And I can admit, just like in the original Virtua Fighter arcade game, Doral just honestly looks way too skinny in my opinion in this. And even in this game, like as all the other characters look a little bit smoother, Doral just kind of looks like herself from the arcade game. She just kind of looks like that blocky look. And of course, since there's not as many polygons making up her body, she doesn't even look as good because there's a bit of like jaggies over her. But yeah, as I was saying, this is a great game. I would highly recommend giving this one a try if you're one of those people who picked up the Sega Saturn version and you were like, I don't like how this game looks. Another quick note, if I didn't mention it already, is people who bought a Sega Saturn and got the free copy of Virtua Fighter with it in America, actually you could mail away for this game for free, and they would send you a free copy of Virtua Fighter Remix in like a cardboard sleeve, kind of to replace your quote-unquote defective version of Virtua Fighter that was so badly ported to the Sega Saturn. Whereas in other countries like Europe and Japan, that had to be a separate purchase, which I have the Virtua Fighter Remix standalone version for the Japanese Sega Saturn. And of course, just like Tekken, which is really cool, it shows all of your victories as you actually beat each of the characters. And as you can see, I kind of favor the whole jumping on the opponent character after I lose, because it's, I would kind of call it akin to like, in your first-person shooters, you'd always do teabagging, but it's just one of the things I always did. The character's vulnerable, and you have one last time to jump on them. And one thing I already did in like Soul Calibur is if I could grab them, I would grab the character and then do a quick throw, like as my coup de grace, if you will. But yeah, as I said, great game, highly recommended. For non-arcade collectors / fans, you might want to pick up the Sega Saturn version, because it's going to honestly look identical. But of course, for us arcade purists or STV owners, it wouldn't hurt to pick up the cartridge. Well, this has been another Game Nexus arcade video, and I shall see you later. Bye.